The brief war between the Daleks and the Cybermen that took place during the events of Doomsday was one of the most important conflicts in the history of Doctor Who. But how did this legendary battle between the Daleks and Cybermen come about? The Cult of Skaro, a group of elite Daleks that were created by the Dalek Emperor to ensure the survival of the Dalek race, had been hiding outside the universe in the Void since the Time War, using a Void ship to protect them from the howling darkness and allow them to return to the universe when the Time War was over. The Void ship appeared above London in the early 2000s, and the Torchwood Institute, an organisation designed to combat alien threats to the United Kingdom, constructed a skyscraper to intercept the Void ship and harness the power of the Terran reality that it had left in its wake. This skyscraper became known to the public as Canary Wharf, but secretly hid the headquarters of a clandestine organisation aiming to use alien technology to restore the British Empire. However, unknown to the Torchwood Institute, an army of Cybermen from a parallel universe made their way through the Void using the Terran reality and manifested as ghosts, which Torchwood encouraged as a bizarre planetary social experiment of sorts, but eventually the Cybermen fully manifested and took control of the Institute. The Doctor arrived with Rose and Jackie during this time, and almost immediately afterwards the Void ship opened, deploying the 4 members of the cult as well as their secret weapon, the Genesis Ark. As the Daleks and Cybermen established themselves, the two races inevitably encountered one another. The Cyber Leader sent 2 Cybermen to investigate strange readings in the Void ship chamber, and Dalek-Sec sent Dalek-Thay out on a scouting mission to investigate the surrounding area, leading to a standoff in a corridor. Dalek-Thay and the Cybermen initially refused to identify themselves to each other until the Cybermen were able to trick Thay into stating the name of his species by refusing to obey his commands. The cult members were able to identify the Cybermen by comparing their outline to their files, as the Cybermen shared a similar outline to Cybermen that the Daleks had previously encountered. The Cybermen pointed out the similarities between the two species, as both were organic intelligences piloting mechanized shells, and offered an alliance to Dalek-Thay, arguing that the two species could conquer the universe together. Thay immediately rejects this offer, however, causing the Cybermen to open fire. Despite the effectiveness of Cybermen weapons against humans, these comparatively primitive Cybermen were no match for the Time War era Daleks. Thay shrugs off the Cybermen's attack and returns fire, exterminating both Cybermen immediately before returning to report to the rest of the cult. The Cyber Leader, meanwhile, contacted Dalek-Sec and warned him that the Daleks had just declared war against the Cybermen. Sec, however, retorted that it was not war, merely pest control. The Cyber Leader initially scoffs at the declaration by Sec that there were only 4 Daleks present, as opposed to the army of 5 million Cybermen that emerged from the parallel universe. But Sec once again hits back, arguing that a single Dalek could defeat the Cybermen and stating that the Cyber Leader and his forces are superior in only one respect, that they are better at dying. With that, he re-establishes the communications blackout surrounding the Void ship, cutting the Cyber Leader off and simultaneously severing a transmission between the Doctor and Rose, who was with the cult in the Void ship room. However, the Doctor had heard all he needed to hear from the exchange, and began formulating a plan before being rescued by Preachers, human soldiers from the Cybermen's native universe equipped with weapons for fighting Cybermen, who assassinate the Cyber Leader and force the Cybermen into a truce. The Doctor upgrades the Preachers' anti-Cybermen guns to give them an advantage over the Daleks, which they then arm the Cybermen with. The guns are modified to pierce polycarbide and temporarily interfere with the Daleks' casing. The Daleks, meanwhile, began to prepare the Genesis Ark for activation, and insisted that Rose activate the Ark, as her handprint would transfer time energy to the Ark and awaken it, in a similar way to how Rose was able to revive the Metaltron. Before Dalek-Sec can force Rose to activate the Ark, however, the Doctor enters the scene, buying time for the Preacher-Cyberman alliance to prepare to attack the Daleks. On the Doctor's cue, the Cybermen and Preachers burst in, rescuing the Doctor and his companions, but not before the Ark itself is accidentally activated in the fray. Due to the anti-polycarbide guns the Cybermen wield, the Daleks prioritize them as a target, and exterminate all of the Cybermen. However, the Doctor, his friends, and the Preachers are able to escape. Meanwhile, the rest of the Cybermen appoint a new Cyber Leader, who leads a combined Cyberman-Torchwood-Preacher alliance in a final bid to stop the Cult of Skaro from escaping the building. The cult invade Torchwood's main hangar, and a huge fight breaks out. Dalek-Sec takes the lead, and absorbs most of the Cybermen and Preacher blasts with his powerful shields. The rest of the cult protect the Genesis Ark, which is itself equipped with shields, and take potshots at Cybermen across the hangar, while Sec slaughters an incoming wave of Cybermen on the ground. After overriding the hangar roof doors, Sec escapes with the Genesis Ark, leaving the other 3 cult members to mop up the remaining Cybermen. Once Sek opens the Genesis Arc and unleashes an army of Daleks in Earth's skies, the relatively contained Battle of Canary Wharf descends into a full-on Dalek-Cyberman War that spreads across the UK and presumably quickly encompasses the rest of the planet, as the Cyber Leader recalls all Cybermen to the Torchwood building in a desperate bid to stop the Daleks, but the flying squadrons lay waste to humans and Cybermen alike as they fire indiscriminately into the streets. This destructive conflict would likely have consumed Earth, to the extent that the Preachers actually abandoned this world and returned to their own upon seeing the Daleks emerge from the Ark. But the Doctor enacts a plan to draw all the previous denizens of the Void, Daleks and Cybermen included, back into the Endless Darkness by using the Torchwood Void Gateway to suck them back inside. This draws all the Daleks and Cybermen on Earth back into the Void, foiling the Cult of Skaro's plans and prematurely ending the Dalek-Cyberman War. Dalek-Sek and the other cult members would escape using an emergency temporal shift, but all of the other Daleks and Cybermen were dragged back into the Void, where they inevitably destroyed each other. A small group of Cybermen did eventually escape the Void, falling back in time to Victorian London, and the Cult of Skaro ended up in New York in the 1930s. Several other Cybermen escaped the battle, as they had been created using materials sourced from Torchwood and were therefore not pulled into the Void. This climactic battle also led to the separation of the 10th Doctor from his first companion, Rose. Needless to say, the brief Dalek-Cyberman War was an influential point in the history of not only the Daleks, but the Cybermen and the Doctor as well. What do you think? Had the war continued, which side do you think would have won? Do you think that other more powerful varieties of Cybermen might have done a better job against the Daleks than the Cybermen did? Do you think that 4 Daleks could have defeated 5 million Cybermen without the Genesis Arc? Let me know in the comments below.